The morning sun rose lazily over the suburban neighborhood of Willow Creek, casting a warm golden light across neatly trimmed lawns and white picket fences. Birds flitted from tree to tree, their morning songs harmonizing with the distant hum of a lawnmower and the soft rattle of a newspaper sliding onto a front porch. In the heart of this quiet street, a small house with blue shutters and a cheerful red door hummed with life, though its most precious occupant had yet to understand the world's complexities. 3-year-old Lily Emerson toddled across her front yard, her tiny hands clutching a tattered stuffed bunny that had seen better days. The bunny's one eye had long since been replaced with a loose button, and its fur was worn thin from countless hugs, but to Lily, it was perfect. She whispered secrets into the bunny's stitched mouth as she walked, her chubby fingers brushing against the soft fabric, tracing the seams as though they held invisible maps to secret worlds only she could access. The grass beneath her small feet was cool and slightly damp from the morning dew, tickling her toes and eliciting bursts of giggles that floated through the air like bubbles of pure joy. Inside the house, her parents moved about in their usual morning routines. Her mother, Sarah, sipped from a steaming cup of coffee, eyes scanning the morning news on her tablet. Her father, Mark, absent-mindedly buttered a slice of toast, humming a tune he had long forgotten he even knew. The scent of brewing coffee, mixed with toasted bread, created a homely aroma that wrapped the house in a comforting cocoon. They watched their daughter play through the bay window, unaware that their calm morning was about to be interrupted by forces from outside their little bubble of suburban tranquility. Across the street, the quiet rhythm of the neighborhood was subtly disturbed by the distant wail of sirens. A call had come into the local police station. A suspicious individual had been spotted near the homes on Willow Creek, moving stealthily through the early morning shadows. The dispatcher's voice was crisp and urgent, relaying coordinates to officers in the field. Within moments, 2 patrol cars were en route, lights flashing, but no one yet acknowledging the potential danger. Behind them, a specialized K-9 unit. Followed closely Rex, a muscular Belgian Malinois with sleek brown fur and eyes that reflected intelligence and loyalty in equal measure, padded silently in the back of the truck, ears twitching at every sound. Back in the Emerson yard, Lily's curiosity guided her further along the front lawn. She was unaware of the approaching emergency. Her world contained entirely within the safe boundaries of her garden, her imagination giving life to invisible friends and stories. Today, she decided, her stuffed bunny was no longer just a companion. He was a brave knight on a mission. She whispered into his ear, "We must protect the castle, Sir Bunny. Watch out for dragons." Her voice carried innocence and determination, a tone that held no fear but infinite courage. The neighborhood itself seemed to hold its breath. Across the street, the officers parked their cars discreetly, stepping out with measured caution. The lead officer, Detective Harris, was a seasoned veteran of the force. His face, lined with years of experience and sleepless nights, showed concentration as he assessed the scene. He barked quiet instructions into his radio, alerting the rest of the team to maintain a perimeter. Rex, sensing the tension, shifted slightly, his paws digging into the soft pavement as his nose twitched in anticipation. Every instinct in the dog's body screamed alert, trained to react instantly to any sign of movement, any hint of danger. Lily, meanwhile, had spotted a butterfly flitting over a patch of clover. She crouched, her knees sinking into the soft grass, eyes wide as she followed its erratic dance. Her laughter was pure, a sound so bright it seemed to illuminate the neighborhood. The butterfly landed gently on a flower near her bunny, and she whispered, "Look, Sir Bunny, the dragon has stopped." Unaware of the approaching sirens and police vehicles, she was fully immersed in her microcosm of adventure and imagination. Mark stepped onto the porch, calling softly to her. "Lily, sweetheart, Stay close, okay? Don't wander too far." His voice carried warmth and a hint of caution, though he had no real sense of the approaching tension. Sarah leaned on the doorframe, watching her husband and daughter with a mixture of pride and amusement. Their daughter's small figure moved, like a dancer across the lawn, her shadow stretching and shrinking with the morning sun. On the street, the officers advanced, their boots pressing lightly against the concrete, eyes scanning every corner. Rex, now on a leash held by Detective Harris, growled softly, sensing something in the air the humans might not yet perceive. The dog's training kicked in immediately, every muscle coiled, ready to spring into action, yet restrained by the guidance of his handler. Harris noticed movement from the far side of the lawn, a small figure moving unpredictably. "Hold," he whispered, steadying Rex's leash. His heart rate increased slightly. Children near active K9 operations were rare, and even the most disciplined dog could be unpredictable when presented with an unknown factor. Lily's tiny figure wandered closer, her focus entirely on the butterfly, now dancing just inches from her tiny hand. She didn't notice the dog, the officers, or the flashing lights. Her world was purely magical, governed by her imagination and the loyal knight at her side. But Rex had noticed. His ears perked, his nose flicking at the unfamiliar scent. The air between them seemed to thrum with tension, though Lily remained blissfully unaware. Time seemed to stretch. Every second amplified the delicate balance between innocence and danger. The neighbors, drawn by the unusual commotion, peeked from windows and front porches, whispering anxiously among themselves. Mothers clutched their children, some stepping outside cautiously to gauge the scene. The street that had been serene just moments before now hummed with an underlying energy, the anticipation of a potential incident vibrating through the air like static. Rex's gaze locked on Lily. His instincts urged him forward, muscles coiling in preparation. Detective Harris tightened his grip, heart pounding. The officers whispered urgent instructions, trying to predict the dog's next move. But Lily, completely absorbed in her imaginary adventure, took another step closer, lifting her hand as if to reach the butterfly. Her small voice rang out in pure curiosity. "Come on, Sir Bunny." And then, in that suspended moment, the story was poised on the knife's edge between danger and safety. The neighborhood held its breath. The morning sun bathed the scene in a golden glow, as if nature itself were pausing to witness the unfolding moment. What could have been a dangerous encounter remained suspended in time, the air thick with anticipation, the tension balanced precariously between the innocence of a 3-year-old girl and the disciplined instincts of a police K9. The quiet morning in Willow Creek was no longer untouched by tension. The distant sirens that had seemed so minor from Lily's perspective were now becoming a presence, a low hum of authority and purpose. Across the street, Detective Harris and his team moved with precision, the kind of coordination that came only from years of training and experience. The neighborhood, usually calm and predictable, was now a stage for disciplined action, though no one yet realized the drama that would unfold just a few feet from the Emersons' front yard. Harris crouched slightly, keeping a firm grip on Rex's leash. The Belgian Malinois was alert, ears pricked forward, muscles taut beneath his sleek coat. Every sense in the dog's body was heightened. He could feel vibrations in the pavement, smell the faintest trace of unfamiliar scents carried on the morning breeze, and see movement almost imperceptible to the human eye. Rex had been trained for months, almost daily, to respond to intruders, threats, and commands without hesitation. And yet, this was different. Something in the air confused the dog's instincts. The officers communicated in near whispers, knowing that any loud noise could startle Rex or escalate the situation. "We need to sweep the north perimeter," one officer murmured into his radio. "Harris, take point with the canine." Harris nodded, his jaw tight with focus. He had worked with Rex for years and knew the dog's strengths and limits. He also knew that the unpredictable factor in any canine operation was almost always humans, especially children. Meanwhile, Lily continued her exploration of the front yard. She had abandoned the butterfly after a particularly daring leap that her stuffed bunny narrowly survived. Now, she wandered toward the small flower bed at the edge of the yard, the soft petals brushing against her tiny fingers. Her curiosity was endless, her mind a whirlwind of fantastical stories and imaginary dangers. She did not see the flashing lights or hear the muted commands of the officers. She was, in every sense, untouched by fear. But Rex had noticed her. The dog's eyes locked on Lily's small figure, head slightly cocked, tail stiffening. His instincts told him that any sudden movement could be a threat. Harris tightened his grip on the leash, whispering, "Stay, wait." The dog's muscles twitched beneath the leash, a silent battle between instinct and obedience. It was the kind of moment that could turn in an instant, and Harris knew that if Rex lunged or misread the situation, the consequences could be catastrophic. Officers fanned out across the street, some positioning themselves behind cars, others moving closer to doorways to ensure that no neighbors were inadvertently in danger. The air was thick with tension, a mixture of authority, fear, and anticipation. Harris's eyes never left Lily. He watched her chubby legs wobble slightly as she shifted from one flower to another. His mind raced through possibilities: how to redirect Rex without causing panic, how to protect the child, how to maintain the integrity of the operation, all at once. From the porch, Mark Emerson noticed the officer's unusual movements. His heart tightened. "Sarah, do you see that?" he whispered, eyes narrowing at the approaching team. Sarah leaned closer, gripping the railing. Their daughter, blissfully unaware, laughed at a clumsy beetle that had crawled across her path. The contrast between Lily's innocence and the officer's readiness was stark. The Emersons exchanged worried glances. Something was happening, and they were only beginning to understand the gravity of the situation. Harris moved Rex forward slightly, testing the dog's reaction. Every muscle in Rex's body was coiled, ready to spring. The dog's training had been rigorous. Respond to threats immediately. Protect civilians. Follow commands without hesitation. Yet, as he advanced, his eyes repeatedly flicked toward Lily. There was something familiar in her voice, though it was faint, almost imperceptible. Harris noticed the subtle hesitation in the dog's step and frowned. "Rex, focus," he commanded. Firmly, the leash tightened in his hands as Rex resisted the pull, caught between instinct and recognition. Time seemed to stretch. Seconds became minutes as the neighborhood held its collective breath. The sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows across the grass, shadows that shifted and twisted with the morning breeze. Lily, unaware of the tension, bent down to inspect a dandelion, her small hands brushing against the petals, flattening. Then gently, before whispering, "Not yet, Sir Bunny. We must wait." Her words, innocent and soft, drifted on the air in a way that would soon prove pivotal. Neighbors peeked through curtains and around corners. A few bold souls stepped onto their porches, whispering among themselves about the unusual sight. A full police unit moving cautiously across the street. A dog trained to respond to the most dangerous situations, and a tiny child wandering dangerously close to the scene. Mothers clutched their children. Elderly men adjusted their hats, squinting against the sunlight as they tried to understand the unfolding events. Everyone seemed to recognize the potential danger, but no one yet realized the extraordinary outcome that awaited. Rex moved another step forward, his paws making soft thuds on the concrete. His tail stiffened, his gaze fixed on Lily. Harris felt the tension in the leash and adjusted his stance, ready for any sudden movement. His mind calculated every possible outcome: lunge, bite, bark, retreat. Each possibility carried risk. Each risk carried consequences. The dog's training was excellent, but instincts could never be fully overridden. Harris's heartbeat accelerated. This was why K-9 operations were always risky near civilians, especially children. Suddenly, a soft voice cut through the tension. It was almost imperceptible over the distant sirens and rustling leaves. "Hi, doggy," Lily said, crouching slightly to inspect a particularly interesting flower. The simplicity of the words, the innocence of the tone, caused a subtle shift in Rex. His ears twitched. He paused, sniffed the air, and for a brief moment, the tension lifted. Harris noticed immediately. The dog's body language changed, the rigid coiled posture softening. Just slightly, the officers exchanged puzzled glances. Something unusual was happening. Mark and Sarah rushed to the porch, a sense of dread mixing with confusion. "Lily, come back," Mark called softly, trying not to startle Rex. Lily, oblivious, waved at the dog as if greeting a long-lost friend. The butterfly she had abandoned earlier landed briefly on Rex's back, causing him to shift slightly. Harris's grip tightened again, careful not to pull too harshly. He whispered under his breath, "Come on, boy, focus." But Rex hesitated, a rare pause in an otherwise flawless performance. Neighbors whispered among themselves, astonished. "Is the dog hesitating?" one asked. Another nodded, eyes wide. Children nearby, sensing the unusual tension, stayed close to their parents. The street that had moments ago seemed normal, now felt charged, as though the very air was aware that something remarkable was about to happen. And then, with the precision that only years of training and an inexplicable connection could provide, Rex made a subtle shift. His muscles relaxed just enough to indicate recognition rather than threat. Harris exhaled slowly, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. The dog was still alert, still disciplined, but the focus had shifted from instinctive reaction to recognition of something familiar in the environment. Every officer on the street understood the rarity of the moment. K-9 units were trained for obedience, but never had a dog responded in such a nuanced way to an untrained child. The realization sparked a mixture of relief, awe, and curiosity. The tension that had gripped the morning seemed to loosen, replaced with a sense of wonder. For a moment, the neighborhood forgot the potential threat entirely. Lily, still crouched, whispered again to her stuffed bunny, "Wait, Sir Bunny, the dragon will come later." Her innocence, her simple commands, were about to shape the course of the morning in a way no one could have predicted. The scene remained frozen in time, a delicate balance between potential danger and unexpected harmony. Rex's training, combined with a bond he had yet to fully articulate, and Lily's pure innocence, created a scenario that no officer, no neighbor, and no parent could have predicted. The quiet street, the rising sun, and the coiled tension of law enforcement all waited for the next moment, the moment when innocence would confront instinct. The morning sun had climbed higher, bathing Willow Creek in a warm glow, yet the air on the Emerson lawn was thick with anticipation. What should have been a peaceful suburban morning was now charged with tension. Detective Harris and his team moved with cautious precision, every officer aware of the potential danger lurking in an ordinary scene. Rex, the Belgian Malinois, strained against the leash, ears pointed, muscles coiled like springs. His instincts screamed alert, yet something in the air, subtle and unspoken, held him back. 3-year-old Lily, oblivious to the growing tension, continued her exploration of the front yard. Her small legs wobbled as she stepped carefully around flower beds, her stuffed bunny clutched tightly to her chest. she had long ago assigned roles to her imaginary companions. Sir Bunny was her loyal knight, and every leaf, butterfly, and pebble was part of a kingdom they protected together. Today, she had decided that a particularly large dandelion was a dragon threatening the castle, and she bent low, examining it carefully. Her voice, soft but deliberate, whispered, "We must be brave, Sir Bunny. The dragon is near." Across the street, Harris watched intently, his eyes scanning every detail. He could see the subtle shift in Rex's posture, the muscles that had been taut for the last several minutes, now coiling and releasing in tiny increments. The dog's eyes flicked between the officers and the little girl, his ears twitching. In confusion, Harris's mind raced through contingencies. Redirect the dog, call off the operation, or intervene directly. Every second mattered, and every second brought Rex closer to Lily. The officers around him mirrored his concern, hands hovering over leashes and radios, ready to react to the slightest indication of aggression. Lily's attention shifted from the dragon to a small butterfly flitting above her head. She giggled, reaching toward it with a chubby hand. "Catch it, Sir Bunny," she whispered. The butterfly landed briefly on her shoulder, brushing her hair, and she squealed with delight. At that very moment, Rex took another step forward, his powerful body tense, ready to react. His eyes, however, softened slightly. There was recognition. In his gaze a spark that hinted at familiarity, though Harris could not yet understand why. From the porch, Mark and Sarah watched, hearts pounding. They had realized something was amiss the moment the officers arrived. Mark's voice, tense but low, whispered, "Sarah, stay calm. Don't panic. Just be ready to grab her if..." He didn't finish the sentence. Knowing that any sudden movement might alarm Rex, Sarah clutched the railing, eyes wide, watching her daughter wander closer to the approaching dog. Lily's innocent exploration, combined with Rex's alertness, created a perfect storm of suspense. Neighbors had begun to peek through windows, their curiosity outweighing their fear. A few stepped onto their porches, whispering anxiously to one another. "Isn't that the little girl?" one asked, eyes fixed on Lily. Another nodded. "She's right in front of the dog. How can he not?" Their words trailed off, the sentence unfinished, hanging in the air like a question mark to the unfolding. Tension. Children clutched their parents' hands, sensing the unusual energy in the street, even if they did not understand it fully. Harris leaned slightly forward, speaking softly to Rex. "Stay. Wait." The dog's powerful frame shivered slightly, as if considering the command against instinct. Harris knew that Rex had faced dangerous suspects countless times, but a child, completely unaware of potential danger, was unpredictable. Every muscle in Rex's body coiled, uncoiling, coiled again. He sniffed the air, flicked his ears, and hesitated. It was the kind of hesitation that could either prevent a disaster or precede one. Harris's heart thumped loudly in his chest. Meanwhile, Lily had decided the butterfly needed a castle to land on. She bent low, extending her hand, and spoke softly. "Come on, little one. Safe with us." Her voice was gentle, melodic, filled with the unself-conscious confidence of a child who believed that the world was inherently good. To her, Rex was not a threat. He was a large, friendly animal, one that could become part of her story. She extended a hand toward him, small fingers trembling slightly, unaware of the tension building in the air. Rex's nose twitched. He took another hesitant step, body rigid, but eyes fixed on Lily. The officers froze, unsure whether to pull him back or let him respond naturally. Harris's mind raced through scenarios. If Rex lunged, the situation could turn catastrophic. If he held, it could be a miracle. Every instinct in Harris screamed caution, yet the dog's hesitation suggested something else, something beyond. Training, The unusual recognition in Rex's gaze puzzled Harris. The dog had never encountered a child in an operational context who caused such a reaction. The street itself seemed to lean in, the neighborhood collectively holding its breath. The soft hum of distant traffic and the rustle of leaves in the morning breeze became almost imperceptible. All attention was fixed on the small girl in the yard and the massive, coiled dog inches away. Time slowed, each second drawn out, stretching into a tense eternity. Every observer, parent, neighbor, officer felt the gravity of the moment. A single misstep, a sudden movement, or a startled bark could unravel the delicate balance. Lily knelt down, bringing her eyes level with Rex. "Do you see the dragon, Sir Bunny?" she asked softly. Her voice was calm, unthreatening, full of wonder. The dog's head tilted slightly, ears flicking, tail stiff, but not aggressive. Harris noticed the micro-expressions, subtle signals that a professional canine handler learns to read after years of experience. There was hesitation, but not fear. Alertness, but not hostility. Recognition, perhaps, but not confusion. Rex was responding to something innate, something beyond the leash, the commands, or the situation itself. Mark stepped forward cautiously, heart pounding. "Lily, sweetie, stand still, okay?" he whispered. She looked up at him briefly, nodded, and then returned her gaze to Rex. Her innocence, combined with her steady voice and unshakable curiosity, seemed to anchor the dog. The tension that had gripped the street for minutes began to waver, replaced with a fragile hope that nothing would go wrong. The officers continued to hold their positions, eyes wide, hands ready. Every professional instinct screamed to intervene, yet there was a magic in the moment that no training could replicate. Rex's powerful frame coiled like a spring, yet he remained still. His eyes never left Lily, and in that gaze was a profound, almost inexplicable connection. The dog's loyalty, training, and bond with humans had converged in a perfect storm of recognition, hesitation, and obedience. From the neighboring yard, Mrs. Caldwell, an elderly woman who had lived on Willow Creek for decades, whispered to her grandson, "Do you see that? The little girl, she's not scared. And the dog, he's listening to her." The boy nodded, wide-eyed, understanding only that something remarkable was happening. Across the street, other neighbors whispered among themselves, realizing that they were witnessing a rare moment where innocence confronted instinct and instinct yielded. Rex shifted slightly again, nose twitching, ears flicking. Harris's heart raced. He had never seen this before. Every officer was on edge, ready to pull the dog back at the slightest indication of aggression. Yet, with each passing second, it became increasingly clear that the child was safe, and that the dog's training and instincts were being overridden, not by fear, not by threat, but by something entirely unexpected. Trust, recognition, and the pure, fearless innocence of a 3-year-old. And then, just as Lily leaned slightly forward to reach for her imaginary dragon, a calmness settled over Rex. His muscles relaxed, tail lowering slightly. Harris allowed himself to breathe just a little, unsure whether relief was premature. Lily had no idea of the danger she had skirted, nor of the tension that had gripped the entire neighborhood. She was simply playing her part in her imaginary adventure, confident and brave, unaware that her innocence was preventing a disaster. The air seemed to hum with anticipation, neighbors frozen in wonder, officers tensed for action, and Rex caught in the delicate balance between instinct and recognition. The smallest figure in the yard, a 3-year-old girl, had unwittingly become the fulcrum on which the morning teetered. Every movement, every word, every soft giggle carried weight far beyond what any of them could have imagined. And so, the innocent approach continued, each step drawing the dog closer, each breath, from Lily anchoring him in trust. The street remained silent, the morning sun casting long shadows that stretched across the yard like protective arms. Willow Creek had never witnessed such a delicate interplay between child and dog, human and instinct. For a few breathtaking minutes, the neighborhood, the officers, and the dog waited, suspended in a moment where innocence and obedience danced on the edge of possibility. The tension that had gripped Willow Creek's quiet street for over an hour seemed to hang in the air like a tangible weight. Every neighbor, every officer, every subtle movement was magnified under the morning sun. The officers' boots shifted slightly on the pavement, leashes taut in their hands, hearts pounding with the awareness that even the smallest misstep could have drastic consequences. Rex, the Belgian Malinois, loomed in the middle of the yard, muscles coiled like springs, every sense alert. Yet, inexplicably, his eyes remained fixed on the small figure of 3-year-old Lily Emerson, who continued to wander with her stuffed bunny clutched tightly. Lily knelt down beside a patch of clover, her tiny fingers brushing against the soft green leaves. She had been unaware of the officer's commands, the tense whispers of neighbors, or the disciplined instincts of the K-9 in front of her. To her, this was simply another adventure in her garden kingdom, a delicate moment of strategy with Sir Bunny at her side. "We must protect the castle, Sir Bunny," she whispered, adjusting the stuffed animal under her arm. Her voice was soft, unassuming, yet it carried a clarity and authority that was almost magical in its innocence. Rex shifted slightly, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air around Lily. Harris felt the micro-tension in the dog's leash, every muscle taut with anticipation. The dog was poised between obedience and instinct, uncertain but attentive. The officers around him held their breath, eyes wide, sensing that the climax of this encounter was near. Their training had prepared them for countless dangerous scenarios, yet nothing had prepared them for a moment where a 3-year-old could exert influence over a fully trained police dog in the midst of an operation. Lily's attention was drawn to a particularly tall blade of grass, which she decided was part of the dragon's tail. Her small hand reached toward it, brushing it aside carefully as she whispered to her bunny, "Not yet, Sir Bunny. The dragon will come later." Her words, filled with calm authority and unshakable innocence, carried across the yard. The officers and neighbors watched in astonishment as something extraordinary began to unfold. Rex, responding to the nuances of Lily's voice, hesitated. Mid-step, his ears twitched. His muscles relaxed ever so slightly. Harris's heart raced. He had encountered situations requiring split-second judgment, yet this was different. The dog, trained for obedience and aggression in high-stakes scenarios, was reacting not to threat, but to trust and recognition. Harris could barely comprehend. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Stay, focus." Yet even as he held the leash, he realized that Rex's obedience in this moment was not entirely his doing. There was something more profound at work, a bond, subtle and unseen, between child and dog. Then it happened. Lily, her eyes wide and sparkling, looked directly at Rex. "Stop, Rex," she said, her voice steady, calm, and perfectly measured. The words were simple, just 2 syllables, yet they carried an authority that transcended her age. Time seemed to pause. The neighborhood collectively held its breath. Every officer froze, hands gripping leashes and radios. Neighbors peered cautiously from behind fences and windows. The air hung heavy, waiting to see what would follow. In a heartbeat, Rex's entire body relaxed. His tail lowered, ears shifting back slightly in recognition rather than aggression. The dog froze in place, muscles no longer coiled, eyes focused. On Lily, with a calm attentiveness that left everyone astonished. Harris and his fellow officers exchanged incredulous glances. The dog, fully trained for obedience and reactive defense, had stopped instantly not at a command from an experienced handler, but at the soft, precise words of a 3-year-old girl. Mark and Sarah Emerson rushed forward, their hearts pounding. With relief and disbelief, "Lily," Mark whispered urgently, fear still lacing his voice. But Lily, still kneeling beside her imaginary dragon, looked up innocently, eyes shining with the clarity of unbroken trust. "He's listening, Daddy. Rex is good," she said matter-of-factly, returning her gaze to the stuffed bunny. Her words, simple yet profound, encapsulated the moment perfectly. The dog had obeyed, and the potential disaster had been averted. With nothing more than 2 words spoken from innocence, the neighborhood erupted in quiet awe. Mrs. Caldwell, the elderly neighbor, whispered to herself, "I have lived here 50 years, and never have I seen anything like this." Children clutched their parents' hands, eyes wide, unsure whether to cry, laugh, or cheer. The officers, disciplined professionals accustomed to danger, found themselves momentarily disarmed by the extraordinary nature of the scene. Harris exhaled slowly, allowing himself a brief moment of relief while still keeping his hand firm on Rex's leash. Rex's behavior remained impeccable. He lowered himself slightly to the grass, as if acknowledging Lily's authority, yet kept alert, ready to follow the next instruction if necessary. Harris knelt down, patting the dog gently, murmuring, "Good boy, very good." The officers surrounding them began to relax, their hands easing from the leashes, their posture softening. What had been a situation brimming with tension was now transformed into a spectacle of calm, trust, and unexpected connection. Mark and Sarah finally approached the yard, hearts still racing, but faces slowly relaxing. "Lily, honey, that was incredible," Sarah whispered, kneeling beside her daughter. Lily, unaware of the magnitude of her actions, simply smiled. "Rex is our friend," she said. Her words, simple and pure, perfectly summarized the miracle of the moment. The officers, neighbors, and even the dogs seemed to share in that acknowledgement. It was not a heroic act in the traditional sense, but a quiet, extraordinary triumph of innocence and trust. The local neighborhood had never seen such a profound interaction. Cameras from phones began to appear, neighbors discreetly capturing the moment for posterity. Social media posts would later describe the event as miraculous and heartwarming, yet those who had witnessed it firsthand knew it transcended description. It was a moment where human instinct, canine training, and the purity of childhood converged in perfect harmony. The officers began to carefully withdraw, maintaining professional composure, but visibly impressed. Harris knelt beside Rex, whispering commands and praises, observing how the dog's behavior had shifted. Rex had been trained to obey, but he had also been trained to recognize authority. Lily, without realizing it, had become an authority figure to him. The intersection of her innocence and his discipline created a scenario that neither training nor experience could have anticipated. Lily stood slowly, clutching Sir Bunny tightly, her tiny feet brushing against the dew-damp grass. "Time to go home, Sir Bunny," she said softly, turning toward her parents. Rex watched her for a moment and lowered his head slightly in acknowledgement before following Harris's lead. The officers remained alert, but the danger had dissipated completely. The street, once brimming with tension and uncertainty, now felt like a stage where calm had triumphed over potential chaos. Neighbors emerged from their homes gradually, their whispers turning into murmurs of awe and admiration. "Did you see that?" "The dog stopped," one exclaimed. "A little girl?" "She just, wow," another said. Across the street, children repeated the words to themselves, eyes wide with fascination. Even the older residents, who had seen decades of ordinary mornings, were speechless. The story of Lily and Rex was already becoming legendary, the kind of moment that would be recounted for years in Willow Creek, Harris finally allowed himself to straighten, brushing dirt from his uniform. He looked at Rex, who sat obediently, ears still alert, but posture relaxed. "That's one for the books, boy," he murmured. His fellow officers nodded, silently acknowledging the rarity of what had just occurred. The professional training that had prepared them for countless high-stakes situations had intersected with an innocent child's calm authority to create something extraordinary, an event that transcended protocol, risk, and expectation. Mark and Sarah hugged Lily tightly, their relief palpable. "You were amazing, sweetheart," Mark whispered into her ear. Lily giggled, hugging Sir Bunny close. "Rex is our friend," she repeated. The words, simple yet profound, captured the essence of the morning. In that moment, everyone understood that courage and calm could manifest in the most unexpected forms, and that sometimes the smallest voices could have the greatest power. The morning sun continued to climb, casting long shadows across the yard, now filled with laughter, awe, and quiet admiration. Willow Creek had witnessed something extraordinary. A 3-year-old girl had halted a highly trained police dog in its tracks with nothing more than 2 simple words. What could have been a dangerous encounter had become a lesson in trust, connection, and the remarkable potential of innocence. The street of Willow Creek had returned, at least superficially, to the calm rhythm of suburban life, but for the officers, the emotional weight of what had just occurred hung heavily in the morning air. Detective Harris stood beside Rex, taking slow, measured breaths to calm his own racing heartbeat. Even after years on the force, after countless operations that required split-second judgment and unwavering nerve, nothing had prepared him for what he had witnessed. A 3-year-old girl, small, innocent, and entirely unaware of her own influence, had stopped a fully trained police dog mid-action with only 2 simple words. Harris studied Rex closely, noting how the dog had shifted from tension to obedience. In a single heartbeat, his ears, once pricked in readiness, now relaxed slightly, and his posture had gone from coiled to controlled. Even the slight wag of his tail suggested acknowledgement, a silent confirmation that the moment had been recognized and processed. Harris's fellow officers were equally astonished. They had trained for years with K-9 units, practiced countless drills, yet never had a child become the pivot of an operation, capable of calming a powerful, instinct-driven animal in the midst of potential danger. Around them, the neighborhood stirred with awe and excitement. Neighbors emerged cautiously from their homes, whispering in disbelief as they recounted the scene to each other. "Did you see that? That little girl?" One woman began, her voice trailing off in wonder. Children peeked from behind porches and fences, eyes wide, mouths slightly agape. Even those who had grown accustomed to the quiet rhythms of Willow Creek recognized that they had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would be told and retold in stories for years to come. Harris knelt beside Rex, running a hand along the dog's sleek coat in a gesture that combined both praise and reassurance. "Good boy," he murmured, his voice quiet, almost reverent. The dog remained seated, alert yet calm, as if understanding the gravity of the morning. Harris could feel the subtle vibrations of energy still lingering in the air, the collective awe of neighbors, the lingering tension from the earlier moments, and the unspoken acknowledgement that what had just occurred was unprecedented. Mark and Sarah Emerson approached cautiously, holding Lily close. Their hearts still pounded from the near miss that had been prevented by their daughter's uncanny command. "Lily, sweetheart, you were incredible," Mark whispered, his voice a mixture of relief, awe, and lingering fear. Lily smiled innocently, hugging her stuffed bunny. "Rex is our friend," she said, simple words that perfectly captured the magic of the moment. The officers exchanged glances, understanding that the child's innocence had done what professional training and experience could not have achieved on its own. As the officers regained composure, they began discussing what had happened in hushed tones. Detective Harris explained, "I've never seen a child affect a dog's behavior like that. Not in a controlled environment, not under training, not anywhere." She had no idea what was happening, yet Rex stopped instantly. "It's remarkable." His colleagues nodded, equally amazed. They debated, quietly, whether this was luck, instinct, or something deeper, an almost mystical recognition between child and animal. Each officer understood that this moment was rare, the kind that might never be repeated in a lifetime of service. The Emersons stood nearby, absorbing the officers' reactions with a mix of pride and astonishment. Sarah whispered to Mark, "I knew her father spent time training Rex at home, but I never imagined it could be this effective." Mark nodded, still holding Lily's hand. "It's more than training," he replied softly. "There's a bond here, something real between her and the dog. She didn't just command him, she connected with him." The realization slowly sank in, not just for the parents, but for everyone who had witnessed the scene. A combination of innocence, patience, and trust had created a moment of near miraculous intervention. Meanwhile, across the street, neighbors continued to emerge from their homes, whispering excitedly among themselves. Phones were raised to capture the scene. The story was already taking shape in the minds of the community. Children mimicked Lily's gentle, commanding voice, testing the theory that words alone could influence animals. Adults shook their heads in disbelief, still processing the near crisis that had been averted. Even those who had initially been critical of police presence found themselves awestruck by the calm, almost magical resolution. Harris decided to document the encounter for official records. He spoke into his radio, recounting the extraordinary behavior displayed by both Rex and Lily. "Unit, this is Harris. I need to note an unusual canine response. Exceptional obedience in response to an untrained civilian, specifically a child. Immediate recognition prevented potential escalation." The dispatcher acknowledged the report, though even she, miles away, sensed the gravity in Harris's voice. Every detail mattered: the dog's training, the child's command, the split-second timing that had prevented disaster. As Harris reviewed Rex's behavior, he noticed subtle cues that had previously gone unnoticed. The dog's nostrils flared slightly when Lily spoke, ears flicking in almost imperceptible acknowledgement. His eyes held a softness, an understanding that suggested recognition, not merely obedience. Harris's professional instincts told him this was a rare convergence of factors: training, instinct, and emotional connection, all balanced perfectly in the calm authority of a 3-year-old. The officers discussed potential follow-ups. "We should consider contacting the family formally," one suggested. "This isn't just an anecdotal moment. There's something to be learned here about trust, training, and human-animal interaction." Harris nodded, agreed. But more than anything, it's a reminder of how unpredictable these situations can be. Even the most controlled environment can be disrupted or guided by the smallest voices. His colleagues murmured their agreement, recognizing the profound lesson embedded in an otherwise routine patrol. Mark and Sarah finally allowed themselves to relax, embracing Lily as she played with her stuffed bunny. "You saved the day, baby girl," Mark said softly. "You really did," Lily giggled, oblivious to the gravity of her actions. To her, it had been another morning in the garden, another adventure with Sir Bunny, and the imaginary dragons she fought daily. Yet in reality, she had prevented what could have been a dangerous encounter, a fact that would resonate far beyond the boundaries of their small yard. The neighborhood slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Conversations buzzed softly as neighbors discussed the miraculous intervention. "Did you see her voice?" One whispered. "She didn't scream or run. She just stopped the dog." Children repeated the words with awe. Parents shook their heads, and elders nodded knowingly. impressed by the extraordinary power of innocence and calm authority. Willow Creek, usually predictable and quiet, had become the stage for a story that would be told for generations. Harris and his team began to pack up their equipment, still processing the morning's events. They had responded to what was initially a straightforward potential threat, only to find themselves witnesses to something far more remarkable. The lesson was clear. Preparation, training, and discipline were vital, but sometimes human connection pure, unassuming, innocent connection could achieve what force and experience could not. Every officer left the scene with a profound respect for the power of trust and the unpredictable magic of human-animal bonds. Rex, obedient and calm, walked alongside Harris, occasionally glancing back at Lily as if confirming that everything was as it should be. The dog's training had been rigorous, his discipline absolute, yet the morning had revealed an entirely new layer of understanding, one that transcended commands and instinct. It was a lesson in subtlety, patience, and respect, a moment that would remain etched in Harris's memory long after the neighborhood returned to its quiet routine. Even hours later, neighbors could not stop discussing the events. The story spread quickly, initially by word of mouth, then through social media posts capturing the aftermath. A little girl stopped a police dog with 2 words, one post. "Read." Another noted, "Incredible trust and bravery from a 3-year-old." The narrative grew, but those who had witnessed it firsthand knew the truth. It was not just the words, but the innocence, calm, and clarity of Lily's voice that had held the day in balance. As the Emerson family returned inside their home, holding Lily close, they reflected on the extraordinary morning. "She has no idea what she did," Sarah whispered. Mark nodded, still processing the mixture of fear and awe. "No, she just knows how to be calm, how to be confident." And that was enough. In the quiet of their home, the gravity of Lily's impact slowly sank in. A moment that could have ended in chaos had been transformed into a story of wonder, patience, and miraculous obedience. By the time the sun reached its zenith, Willow Creek had resumed its usual pace. But the story of a small girl, a trained police dog, and 2 simple words lingered in every conversation. The officers, their hearts still pounding, knew they had witnessed something extraordinary, something that transcended normal operations and entered the realm of legend. And for Lily, the morning had been another adventure, one she would remember, perhaps not fully understanding its magnitude, but one that had already left a lasting impact on everyone who had been there to witness it. By midday, the small suburban neighborhood of Willow Creek had transformed from quiet serenity into a buzzing hive of astonishment and excitement. Word of the morning's extraordinary event spread rapidly, first from neighbor to neighbor, then from phone to phone. Social media accounts began to fill with snapshots and whispered retellings of what people had just witnessed. A 3-year-old girl, Lily Emerson, had halted a fully trained police dog mid-operation with only 2 words, "Stop, Rex." Story, simple yet miraculous, captured the imagination of the entire community. Mrs. Caldwell, the elderly neighbor who had watched the encounter from her porch, was the first to recount it in detail to the block. "I have lived here for decades, and I have never seen anything like this," she told anyone who would listen. Her voice, trembling slightly with excitement, carried through the yard, drawing the attention of passing children and neighbors tending their gardens. She just stood there calmly, and the dog listened like magic. Her words, though informal, accurately captured the sense of awe that everyone on the street felt. Children began retelling the story to one another, embellishing it with small flourishes that only youth could add. "She's a superhero," one declared. "She made Rex stop with her voice." Another chimed in, "I want a dog like Rex too." Laughter, disbelief, and wide-eyed fascination filled the air. For them, it was not just an event, It was a story of power and bravery wrapped in innocence. A fairy tale unfolding in real time on their quiet street. Parents, too, were drawn into the narrative, sharing their amazement and debating the implications. Can you believe it? A 3-year-old calmed a police dog in the middle of an operation. One mother exclaimed to another over the fence, "It's incredible." It's a reminder that calm and confidence qualities we sometimes underestimate can actually prevent disasters. Fathers nodded in agreement, some chuckling in disbelief, others shaking their heads at the sheer improbability of what had occurred. The event had sparked a communal reflection on courage, patience, and the unexpected ways children can influence the world. Meanwhile, the Emerson family was slowly settling back inside their home, still processing the whirlwind of events. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, tea in hand, while Mark hovered near the window, occasionally glancing outside at neighbors still buzzing with conversation. Lily, unaware of the significance of her actions, continued to play with her stuffed bunny on the rug, her imagination untouched by the magnitude of the morning. "Sir Bunny says the dragon will come later," she told the toy earnestly, and in that moment, the ordinary magic of childhood seemed to contrast sharply with the extraordinary events she had inadvertently influenced. News traveled beyond the neighborhood almost instantly. Local community groups on social media lit up with comments, shares, and videos. Someone had captured the final moments on their phone, showing Lily kneeling with Sir Bunny while Rex obeyed her command, and it went viral within hours. The captions varied from "incredible bravery from a toddler" to "a miracle on Willow Creek Street." Each post garnered hundreds of reactions, and before long, the story began to attract attention from local news outlets. Willow Creek, usually a quiet suburban enclave, had become a symbol of wonder, calm, and trust. By early afternoon, reporters were arriving, notebooks and cameras in hand, eager to document the incredible story. One local television crew set up just across the street, filming the Emerson home from a respectful distance. "It's not every day you see something like this," one reporter explained on camera. "A 3-year-old has single-handedly prevented a potential K-9 incident simply through her calm and measured words. It's inspiring and remarkable." Footage of neighbors discussing the event, children reenacting the story, and officers cautiously smiling while recounting the morning began to circulate widely, ensuring that the story would reach audiences well beyond Willow Creek. The officers themselves, still present for a few more hours to finalize their report, were astonished by the community reaction. Detective Harris, standing near Rex, remarked quietly to a colleague, "I've handled dozens of high-risk operations, but I've never witnessed anything like this. This isn't just luck. It's instinct, training, and that child's calm presence, all combined in a way I can't explain." His colleague nodded silently, eyes reflecting the same awe and respect. Even professionals trained to manage danger recognized the uniqueness of the morning's events. Community leaders also took notice. The local council's representative arrived in the afternoon to offer official commendations, acknowledging both Lily's role, albeit unintentional, and the exceptional obedience of Rex. "We want to formally recognize the Emerson family and Officer Harris's K-9 unit," she explained. "What occurred here is a testament to the power of calm, discipline, and the extraordinary influence of a child's voice. It's an important reminder that heroism can appear in the most unexpected forms." Her words were met with applause from neighbors and officers alike, a rare moment of official recognition in a typically routine community. The narrative of Lily and Rex sparked conversations beyond the immediate neighborhood. Parenting forums, online animal training communities, and local blogs began to discuss the extraordinary implications of the incident. A perfect example of the bond between humans and animals. One blog post read, "The trust built over time, even through small interactions, can sometimes surpass even formal training in moments of tension." Experts debated, educators marveled, and the story became a case study in the surprising power of calm authority and early emotional intelligence. Back on Willow Creek Street, neighbors continued to gather, not out of fear, but out of fascination. Children reenacted the story with their pets, using dolls and toys to mimic Lily's heroic composure. Adults discussed how this incident illustrated the importance of teaching patience, empathy, and calm problem-solving to children. Even the officers who had witnessed the event joined in, smiling and answering questions, fully aware that they had been part of something rare and extraordinary. By late afternoon, the initial flurry of excitement began to settle into a quieter, reflective appreciation. Willow Creek had been changed, if only subtly, by the morning's events. The narrative of a toddler stopping a highly trained police dog resonated on multiple levels. It reminded adults of the latent power within children, highlighted the remarkable obedience of well-trained animals, and reinforced the notion that sometimes the most extraordinary interventions come from unexpected sources. The Emerson family, meanwhile, slowly regained their sense of normalcy. Mark and Sarah sat together in the living room, watching as Lily played nearby. "I can't believe what happened," Sarah said softly, her voice tinged with awe. Mark nodded, staring out the window at neighbors still exchanging stories. "It's unbelievable. And yet, somehow, it feels like it should have happened." There was something about her calmness, her confidence. Rex just listened. They both smiled, still processing the morning's events, aware that their daughter had unknowingly created a story that would be remembered for years. As the sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the street, Willow Creek gradually returned to a semblance of its usual rhythm. Yet the excitement lingered, a quiet hum of admiration and disbelief running through the neighborhood. The story of Lily and Rex, the bravery of a child and the obedience of a dog, had become a legend, not just for its miraculous resolution, but for the broader lesson it imparted. Sometimes, courage and calm, even from the smallest voices, can achieve what years of training and experience cannot. Neighbors returned to their homes. Children played nearby while recounting the tale, and the officers completed their reports, still shaking their heads in amazement. The community, forever changed, would carry the story forward in conversation, social media posts, and casual retellings. The narrative of Lily and Rex had transcended a simple morning incident. It had become a symbol of trust, patience, and the extraordinary ways that innocence and discipline could intersect to prevent disaster and inspire wonder. By nightfall, the street had quieted once again, yet the story of the morning remained alive in everyone's minds. It was discussed in whispers, retold over dinner tables, and reflected upon with a sense of awe. The remarkable incident, so simple in its execution, yet so profound in its impact, had reminded Willow Creek of the extraordinary potential present in the ordinary world. And at the heart of it all, unaware of the magnitude of her actions, Lily slept peacefully, Sir Bunny tucked under her arm, the hero of a day that no one would soon forget. By the following morning, Willow Creek had become the epicenter of attention, far beyond its quiet suburban borders. The story of 3-year-old Lily Emerson and her astonishing interaction with Rex, the highly trained police dog, had captured the imagination of the entire region. Local news outlets had reported the event, sharing video clips, interviews, and eyewitness accounts. Social media was abuzz with hashtags praising Lily's calm authority and Rex's obedience. The narrative was compelling. A tiny child, armed only with innocence and 2 simple words, had prevented a potential canine incident that could have escalated dangerously. Reporters from multiple networks arrived at the Emerson home, cameras rolling, microphones poised, eager to capture the family's reaction. The Emersons had agreed to a brief interview, hoping to share the story while protecting their daughter's privacy. Sarah Emerson sat nervously in the living room, clutching her tea, while Mark adjusted his tie and tried to appear composed. Lily, blissfully unaware of the attention she was about to receive, played quietly with Sir Bunny in the corner, occasionally glancing at the camera with a curious tilt of her head. A local reporter stepped forward, camera crew in tow. "Mrs. Emerson, Mr. Emerson, can you describe what happened yesterday morning? Your daughter's actions were extraordinary, and the footage has captivated the entire community." Sarah took a deep breath. "It's hard to put into words," she admitted. "Lily was just playing in the yard, as she always does. She's very imaginative, and she approaches everything with calmness and confidence. We didn't realize at the time what was happening until we saw the police dogs and officers reacting so carefully," Mark added. "We are still in awe. She didn't understand the danger or the attention. All she did was speak, and somehow Rex listened. That's all it took." Footage of the incident played for the crew, showing Lily kneeling beside her imaginary dragon, while Rex froze mid-step, ears twitching in acknowledgement. Harris and his team were shown briefly in the background, leashes taut but relaxed, officers exchanging glances of disbelief. The combination of innocence, bravery, and training was mesmerizing to watch. The reporter spoke into the camera, voice filled with wonder. "In a world that often feels chaotic, this story reminds us that courage and trust can come from the most unexpected places, even from a 3-year-old girl." The story quickly gained traction nationally. Morning talk shows featured segments discussing the extraordinary event, with experts weighing in on the implications. Child psychologists spoke about Lily's calm authority and emotional intelligence, noting that children sometimes have the ability to influence animals in ways adults cannot. Animal behaviorists explained how Rex's training had prepared him for obedience, but his ability to respond to Lily's voice was extraordinary, highlighting the unpredictable yet profound bond between humans and animals. Meanwhile, local residents of Willow Creek had embraced the media attention with pride. They spoke of the Emerson family with admiration and excitement, retelling the story with small personal embellishments that only added to its charm. "I saw her standing there, calm as could be," one neighbor recalled, "and Rex just stopped, like he knew exactly what she meant. I've never seen anything like it." Children reenacted the event with their pets and toys, practicing calm, authoritative commands while imagining themselves as heroes in their own gardens. The story had become a teaching moment, a source of inspiration, and a symbol of the extraordinary in the ordinary. National news outlets requested interviews with Detective Harris and the K-9 unit. Harris appeared on a morning news segment alongside Rex, explaining the unique circumstances. "We train our dogs rigorously," he explained, "but this incident was unprecedented." Lily's calm, confident voice reached Rex in a way no human command could. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes innocence and purity of intent can achieve what experience alone cannot. The footage of Rex sitting obediently beside Lily, filmed by neighbors, was shown repeatedly, generating a mix of awe and curiosity across television screens and social media feeds. The media spotlight also brought new challenges. The Emersons were careful to maintain Lily's privacy, limiting her exposure while still sharing their remarkable story. Each interview was carefully moderated, emphasizing her innocence, the extraordinary bond with Rex, and the lessons that could be drawn from the event. Despite the attention, Lily remained blissfully unaware of the magnitude of her actions. She continued to play, creating imaginary battles and adventures in the living room, while adults around her managed the growing media frenzy. Across the nation, the story sparked a larger conversation about the relationship between children and animals, the impact of calm authority, and the potential for extraordinary influence from unexpected sources. Parenting magazines published features exploring how fostering patience, Confidence and empathy in young children could have profound effects, not just in domestic settings, but in broader social contexts. Animal training schools discussed how moments like these highlighted the importance of trust building alongside obedience, showing that emotional bonds could sometimes surpass even rigorous training protocols. Back in Willow Creek, the officers who had witnessed the event were invited to speak on local radio programs. Harris recounted the morning with a mix of pride, awe, and professional reflection. It's not every day that you see a toddler stop. A fully trained police dog mid-operation. We were all ready for any outcome, but instead, we witnessed something extraordinary. It was a moment that none of us will forget. His colleagues nodded in agreement, still marveling at the calm authority exhibited by someone so young. The discussion extended to community safety, emphasizing the importance of awareness and measured responses, while celebrating the unexpected heroism displayed by Lily. As the media coverage intensified, the Emerson family found themselves navigating a delicate balance between sharing their story and preserving their daughter's normal childhood. Local reporters respected their wishes, focusing on interviews with Sarah, Mark, and the officers, while capturing footage of Rex in training exercises to illustrate the dog's professionalism and discipline. Social media continued to amplify the story, with clips and photos going viral, shared across countless platforms. Comments ranged from admiration to incredulity, but every post celebrated the extraordinary intersection of innocence and instinct that had saved the day. By evening, Willow Creek had become a focal point of fascination. Visitors cautiously arrived to glimpse the street where the incident had taken place. Neighbors welcomed them with smiles, and children continued to reenact the event with enthusiasm. The Emersons, though overwhelmed at times, embraced the story's positive message, that even in moments of potential danger, calm, trust, and courage, regardless of age, could influence outcomes in remarkable ways. The story of Lily and Rex transcended mere news coverage. It became a symbol of inspiration. Across the nation, viewers reflected on how small voices can wield profound influence, how patience and calm can diffuse potential crisis, and how extraordinary events often emerge from the simplest circumstances. Educators, parents, and animal trainers all cited the incident as an example of the unpredictable power of innocence, sparking discussions and lessons that would continue long after the media cameras had left Willow Creek. That night, as the Emerson family gathered in their home, the quiet hum of the media coverage slowly faded. Lily, exhausted from her day of play and interviews, cuddled Sir Bunny and fell asleep peacefully, unaware of her newfound fame. Mark and Sarah sat nearby, reflecting on the surreal experience. "She didn't even know what she did," Sarah said softly, smiling. Mark nodded, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "No, she just trusted her instincts and stayed calm. That was enough, more than enough." In homes across Willow Creek, conversations lingered about this remarkable morning when a 3-year-old had influenced a fully trained police dog. Children were inspired, parents were reflective, and neighbors shared stories of awe and wonder. The media spotlight had amplified the event, but at its heart, it remained a simple story of courage, trust, and the extraordinary power of innocence. And while the world watched in amazement, Lily continued to live her life as any child would, curious, playful, and unassuming, a tiny heroine in a quiet neighborhood whose actions would resonate far beyond her understanding. Days turned into weeks, and Willow Creek slowly returned to its familiar rhythm. Yet, the morning when 3-year-old Lily Emerson stopped Rex, the highly trained police dog, with only 2 words remained vivid in everyone's memory. The event had transformed from a local curiosity into a story with lasting significance. It had been recounted countless times on social media, in local newspapers, And even in national broadcasts, and each retelling highlighted a singular truth: courage, calmness, and trust, even from the smallest and youngest, could have extraordinary impact. For the Emerson family, life carried a mix of awe and normalcy. Lily continued her playful routines, unaware of the monumental role she had played. She invented new adventures for Sir Bunny, vanquishing imaginary dragons and rescuing tiny stuffed animals from peril. Mark and Sarah watched her, reflecting quietly on the morning's events. The magnitude of what had happened slowly sank in. "She doesn't even know how powerful that moment was," Sarah whispered to Mark one afternoon. "And maybe that's the beauty of it. She acted from instinct and trust, not ego or attention." Mark nodded, realizing that true courage often manifested in the most unassuming forms. Detective Harris and Rex returned to their regular patrol duties, but the memory of Lily's impact lingered. Harris often shared the story with new officers during canine training, emphasizing the unpredictable nuances of working with animals and civilians alike. "Training is vital," he explained, "but never underestimate the power of calm authority and trust. Sometimes the smallest voice can have the greatest influence." Rex, meanwhile, seemed to recognize Lily's voice even across distance. A soft call from the Emerson yard would cause him to pause mid-step, a subtle acknowledgement that the extraordinary morning had forged a lasting bond. The local community of Willow Creek embraced the story with pride and admiration. It became a talking point for neighbors, a lesson for children, and a symbol of unity and inspiration. Schools discussed the event during morning assemblies, highlighting the importance of patience, courage, and calm thinking. Teachers encouraged students to practice empathy and trust-building exercises, using Lily's example to illustrate that even young children could make a difference. The story became a tool for teaching values that extended far beyond the classroom. Social media continued to feature clips and commentary, but the narrative evolved from astonishment to reflection. Parenting groups shared advice on fostering calmness and confidence in children, while animal training communities analyzed Rex's reaction as an exceptional example of canine responsiveness and trust. "This isn't just obedience training," one animal behaviorist wrote online. "This is the intersection of trust, intuition, and emotional intelligence, both human and canine." The discussion elevated the morning from a curious incident to a case study in the power of connection. For the Emersons, media requests eventually slowed, but the legacy of that morning persisted. They remained protective of Lily, ensuring her childhood remained filled with play and imagination rather than public scrutiny. Yet they also recognized the importance of acknowledging the moment's impact. Sarah documented the event in a personal journal, noting how Lily's innocence had bridged a gap between instinct and control. Mark, too, reflected on the enduring lesson: the strength of calmness and clarity could rival the most rigorous training or experience. Harris and his team continued to discuss the morning among themselves. The event became a reference point in canine training discussions and professional seminars. Officers marveled at the rare convergence of factors: a fully trained police dog, a high-stakes potential scenario, and a 3-year-old child whose calm and precise words prevented escalation. "It's something you hope to witness once in a career," Harris admitted, "and even then, you can't count on it. It's a perfect example of how trust and instinct can override even the most rigid protocols." Rex, now almost a local celebrity in his own right, seemed calmer around children and civilians after that morning. Officers noted his subtle recognition of authority from unexpected sources, particularly those who approached with confidence and trust. The bond between Rex and Lily became a symbol in the community, demonstrating the extraordinary potential of human-animal connection. Visitors to the neighborhood would sometimes glimpse the pair in the yard, Lily's tiny hand brushing the dog's fur, and quietly smile at the enduring harmony they represented. The event also fostered a sense of pride and togetherness in the broader community. Neighbors spoke of the morning with warmth and admiration, recounting it at block parties, casual gatherings, and local events. The story served as a reminder of the quiet heroism that could exist in everyday life, encouraging residents to look for acts of courage, empathy, and trust in ordinary situations. Willow Creek had been forever changed, not just by the event itself, but by the lessons it imparted. Local authorities even considered creating educational materials inspired by the incident. Workshops were proposed to teach children about trust, calm authority, and interacting safely with animals. Police departments discussed using Lily's example as part of community outreach programs, emphasizing that safety, communication, and emotional intelligence could be as powerful as training and discipline. What had begun as a simple backyard encounter had evolved into a model for understanding the delicate interplay between humans and animals, children and authority, instinct and intuition. As months passed, the story of Lily and Rex continued to ripple outward. News outlets revisited the narrative during human interest segments, emphasizing its enduring appeal. Experts discussed the significance of calmness, highlighting that in high-pressure situations, even trained professionals could benefit from observing the effects of patience and trust. Parenting magazines published follow-up pieces analyzing the developmental aspects of Lily's behavior, reinforcing the notion that courage often manifests quietly, without fanfare, and in unexpected forms. The Emerson family adapted gracefully to the attention. They encouraged Lily's natural curiosity and bravery, while maintaining the protective boundaries necessary for a healthy childhood. Mark and Sarah occasionally shared anecdotes about the morning, emphasizing the lessons rather than the fame, teaching Lily that true influence stems from integrity, trust, and calmness, rather than recognition. Lily, for her part, continued to explore her world with fearless curiosity, blissfully unaware of the profound impact she had had on a police dog, her neighborhood, and a nation captivated by her simple, powerful words. Even Detective Harris reflected on the long-term significance. He continued his work with Rex, integrating the lessons from that morning into his professional practice. He became an advocate for trust-based training methods, emphasizing the importance of calm authority and emotional awareness. Harris's team often referred to the morning as a turning point, a reminder that no amount of preparation could replace the instinctive power of connection and the subtle influence of calm, confident action. Years later, the story of Lily and Rex continued to inspire. Willow Creek preserved the tale as part of its local heritage, recounting it during community events, school programs, and neighborhood gatherings. Children who had witnessed it firsthand grew up retelling the story, teaching lessons about courage, empathy, and trust to younger generations. What had started as a quiet morning in a suburban yard became a lasting legacy, a tale of bravery, connection, and the extraordinary potential of even the smallest voice. At home, Lily eventually grew older, but the memory of her first real-life adventure remained subtly embedded in her character. She approached challenges with calm authority, solved problems with patience, and treated animals and people alike with care and trust. Mark and Sarah often reflected on how that morning had shaped her early life, a foundational lesson in influence, empathy, and courage that would carry her through countless situations in the years to come. Rex, still alert and disciplined, continued his duties as a K-9 officer, but he never forgot the bond forged that morning. Even routine training exercises carried echoes of the day when a small child's simple words had commanded attention, calmed instinct, and prevented what could have been a dangerous incident. The story became part of the legacy of Willow Creek's K-9 program, a testament to the power of calm, trust, and the unexpected heroism found in innocence. The morning when a 3-year-old girl stopped a fully trained police dog with 2. Words had transcended a simple incident to become a symbol, a story, and a lesson. For the Emerson family, the officers, the neighbors, and even the broader community, it illustrated a profound truth. Courage, patience, and trust are not measured by size or age. And sometimes the smallest voices can wield the greatest power. Willow Creek would always remember the day that Lily, with her soft, unwavering words, changed the course of a morning, created a lasting bond, and left a legacy that would inspire generations.